I was happening, y'all. It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and I know you just saw what Bobby Slowik and the Texans just did to those Cleveland Browns. That elite Cleveland Brown defense, to be specific, man. We're here to talk about why the Washington Commanders should hire Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowik as our next head coach. I've already said it. My top three candidates are a group of Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, Mike McDonald, the Ravens defensive coordinator, and of course also the man of the hour, Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowik. Now, we've already requested an interview with him. Not sure if we've actually already interviewed him virtually yet. We haven't interviewed anybody in person yet, but I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. There's definitely clear interest because, again, we've reached out to interview him. We'll see if he responds or anything like that. We got to talk about this guy. First of all, he's the QB whisperer, the elite defense destroyer. Come on, man. We got to break down how his offense is one of the best in the NFL after just only one season of being an offensive coordinator in his NFL life, career, whatever you want to call it, with a rookie quarterback, with injuries all over the offense as well, to their number one receiver, offensive line, everything. We're going to do an analysis of his scheme and his ability to get guys open, knowing how to take advantage and to maximize all talent on the team. He did a great job of scheming against an elite pass rusher in Myles Garrett in that playoff game that we just witnessed. And just the fact that they went from number 2 overall pick, which we have, to Super Bowl contender. Like, how did they do that? We got to talk about all of that. How about we try that, as in the Commanders? We already have step 1 down, getting the number 2 overall pick. Let's go become a Super Bowl contender within 1 year, just like the Texans did. And hiring Bobby Slowik vastly increases your chances of being able to do that. But before we dive into everything I just previewed, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned because I'm coming out with multiple videos a day. If you missed that call-in show live stream earlier, make sure you go back and watch that replay of it because I gave a lot of great points as the hiring of Adam Peters and who we should be looking at for head coach, whether we should consider Eric Bieniemy or not. But also, most importantly, the reason I even gave that platform to y'all, the viewer, to become callers is because y'all brought up a lot of great points as well. Again, I feel like there's a lot of smart people out there in this fan base especially, but a lot of y'all just didn't decide to just wake up one day and make a YouTube channel. So I feel like I need to do the call-in shows to give y'all an opportunity to voice your opinions on a lot of things, and y'all brought up a lot of excellent points. If you haven't seen that, go check that out. It started at 4 p.m. ended around like 6 or something like that. Make sure you go check that out and stay tuned for more live stream call-in shows because we're going to do things after we hire the head coach. We're going to do how we feel about the head coach live stream. We're going to take a look at defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator options, and those, we're going to do those in live streams as well. Free agency, draft. Stay tuned, and without further ado, sorry for the long intro. Let's get it. Oh, wow. That man, Max Crosby, actually sat there and said, if y'all don't hire Antonio Pierce as the head coach, I will probably request a trade. And then hours later, them boys named Antonio Pierce the head coach. That is crazy. But let's get back on track with this video. Man, this boy Bobby Slowik went crazy tonight. He went crazy all season, but he especially went crazy tonight. This is probably the deepest his bag was all season, and what better timing? And I don't know if that was luck or maybe that was strategy. Maybe he waited until the playoffs to finally reach deeper into his bag. We're going to talk about that. But you have fans from other teams in the AFC South begging for another team outside of the AFC South to go ahead and hire Bobby Slowik as a head coach so that he can leave their division alone. Go look on Twitter right now. I see Colts fans, all kinds of people, Jaguars fans, like, please, somebody take this guy out of the AFC South immediately. We can't do nothing with this guy type of thing, man. That's high praise when your enemies are that afraid of you, man. That's first and foremost. But, man, I mean, the Texans dominated an elite Browns pass defense. Like, they're an elite defense in general, but one thing you can argue, they're one of the best pass defenses in the NFL between their pass rush, their secondary, their linebackers that can fly around in coverage, and Bobby Slowik and the Texans led by CJ Stroud, dissected that defense like it was nothing. This was a beautiful, probably best case scenario audition as a potential head coach from offensive coordinator Bobby Slowik to all teams that are potentially interested in him and out there, including the Commanders. I mean, this probably rose his stock and increased his chances of him becoming our head coach mightily. And just the steps, how he's done this. Remember, again, I'm going to reiterate this. This is his first year as an offensive coordinator in the NFL in his entire life. He started off as a defensive guy when he was back with us in 2013 on that legendary staff, the legendary 2013 staff. We're going to talk about that soon. This guy was doing defensive stuff, switched to the offensive side of the ball, became an offensive coordinator for the first time in his NFL career. And these are the results that you're getting from him. If we're talking about young, innovative, offensive-minded head coach potential guy that a lot of people are out there looking for, and with good reason, this guy, you could argue, has the highest ceiling. Because Ben Johnson, great. He's still probably my number one candidate, even though Mike McDonald is making a great case for how he shut down Ben Johnson and Bobby Slowik. Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniels already did a video on that just earlier today. Make sure you go check that out if you haven't already. But also, my boy Bobby Slowik is out there making the case that even as great as Ben Johnson is, he's been doing it for a while. He's already been doing it for a couple of years. This is big. I want to reiterate, this is Bobby Slowik's first year as an offensive coordinator ever. And look at what he's doing. But let's just go back, take it a little bit further back. When you watch the Texans offense, you can see the heavy influence of the Shanahan system. All of the staples are there. Let's go ahead and get that out the way, man. You could tell he was under Kyle Shanahan's tutelage in arms, wings, whatever you want to word it as. You can see it in his offense. It's very Kyle Shanahan-like, but just with a couple of tweaks there, most notably some tweaks to basically adjust to the talent that he has, because he doesn't have the 49ers type of talent. You could definitely argue he doesn't have the 49ers amount of talent as well. But even if he did have the amount of talent, even if he did have as many Pro Bowlers and All Pros, which he doesn't, you still got to take an offense as a base and then adjust it to the talents you have. He's done an excellent job with that, man. And shouts out my boy Mark Bullock. Again, shouts out to him over there from the UK. He does excellent film breakdowns, all 22 film sessions and stuff like that on a lot of players, on a lot of coaches. He's already done it for Ben Johnson, Mike McDonald, and Bobby Slowik. And as a conclusion, after you go through, make sure you subscribe to his Substack, worth every penny. I'm always going to promote his Substack because he does great work. He even shows you the clips and the route concepts with the arrows and everything in the breakdown. But in conclusion, he said, this level of layering concepts on top of each other is extremely advanced and a huge part of why Kyle Shanahan has been such a successful play caller in the NFL. Slowik appears to have picked up on that and implemented it himself, between having defenses having to decipher between a run and a play action pass, then having to worry about getting back deep to prevent explosive play actions, but not too deep in order to prevent screen passes underneath. Slowik's version of the Shanahan system provides a ton of stress to the defense while keeping things friendly for the quarterback. And that's huge. Keeping things friendly for the quarterback is monumental, because they just drafted a quarterback second overall. He's a rookie, and CJ Stroud, we're more than likely going to do the same thing. So to design an offense that's that effective, but at the same time extremely QB friendly, is huge, man. I don't think y'all understand, dog. With Washington likely to be drafting a quarterback with the second overall pick, this could be a hugely appealing trait, especially as Slowik already has proven he can turn a quarterback drafted second overall and help develop him into a very productive quarterback within his rookie year. Gotta keep emphasizing these things, man. He balled out, and man, we need that number 2 overall pick to hit just like CJ Stroud did for them, but for us, man. Who better to not only find that guy, but to also develop that guy than the guy that just did it for CJ Stroud and the Texans this year? If he could do it for the CJ Stroud and the Texans, why wouldn't he be able to do it with Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Jaden Daniels for the Commanders? Why wouldn't he be able to? And Slowik is so elite at QB development and offense designing and play calling for a young quarterback that the only way I'm okay with us even waiting to take a quarterback until after we've already used the number 2 overall pick on something else, on a different position, then we can maybe take like a Michael Penix later, is if we get Bobby Slowik as a head coach. Even as much as I love Ben Johnson, I'm not comfortable with passing on Drake May or Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels for getting a Michael Penix later in the draft, trading back, or maybe second round pick or something like that, like in the Will Levis range or something. I'm not comfortable with doing that with anybody else but Bobby Slug. As much as I love Mike McDonald and I love Ben Johnson for other reasons, and I feel like they're elite candidates as well, Bobby Slowik is the only potential head coach out there, an offensive-minded guy, that I'd be even slightly comfortable with that. And I still don't want to. I'm still team just go ahead and use that top pick on a quarterback, especially if you love the guy. Don't force it. If you only love Caleb Williams, let me go ahead and say this, and I feel like I've already said this before, but if you only love Caleb Williams, and then we get to the draft, and this organization is only in love with Caleb Williams, and he's gone to the Bears #1 overall, and now you're left with Drake May and Jaden Daniels, don't force it. If you don't love those guys, don't even force it. I want Adam Peters and whoever we hire as head coach, potentially Bobby Slowik in this scenario, to find the right guy and to build the team around the right guy. But don't force it if the guy that you really want is not there. Now, if you feel like all three of these guys, you can be highly successful with all of them, then definitely take one of them. This is not a common opportunity that you have. With the way that I believe Adam Peters is going to build this team, the way potentially a Bobby Slowik, a head coach, is going to have this team winning games, we won't be in this situation and in range to get elite quarterback talent like this again. But I do want to say that if we did want to go the route of waiting and maybe getting a Michael Penix later in the draft, the only way I could even be slightly not upset about it is if Bobby Slowik is our head coach, is the best way I could put it. But also Bobby Slowik, man, went so crazy today against that elite Browns defense, who, again, to remind you, one of the best defenses in the NFL, that the Texans sat CJ Stroud early in the fourth quarter with a 45-14 lead, man. CJ Stroud at 22 years old and 102 days, so 22 years, 102 days old, is now the fourth youngest quarterback to ever start a postseason game. And now he's also the youngest QB to ever win a postseason game. Shouts out to Bobby Slowik for that. Now, CJ Stroud, of course, deserves a lot of credit for that. I know as a Georgia Bulldog fan that he's something serious, and he was immediately my favorite quarterback in that draft after what he did to my Bulldogs and how his kicker let him down. Now, they should have went ahead and just ended up winning the championship. But hey, man, that game was all I needed to see against my Bulldogs to know that this guy's going to be something serious at the NFL level, man. And so he deserves a lot of credit, but Bobby Slowik also deserves a lot of credit as well. Houston Texans, CJ Stroud, first playoff game, comes out with the dub, throwing 16 for 21, 76 completion percentage, 274 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Only 21 passes attempted, 45 points by the early fourth quarter. That is scary efficiency, man. Again, CJ Stroud balled out, but Bobby Slowik, man, that was a masterclass performance, man. I mean, again, 21 attempted passes, 16 completions, 274 yards, 3 touchdowns, 45 points is incredible. Now, granted, 14 of those points were from the defense, but still, man, that's absolutely ridiculous right there. Also, CJ Stroud finished today's game with a 1.57.2 passer rating, marking the highest passer rating in a game by a rookie in NFL history with at least a minimum of 20 attempts. Also, CJ Stroud averaged a career high of plus 0.69 EPA per dropback in this postseason debut, which is the most by a rookie quarterback in a playoff game in the NGS era, next gen stats. Just to let you know, man, CJ Stroud completed 7 of 8 passes under pressure for 118 yards and was not sacked. So you also got to give him credit for that, but you also got to give Bobby Slowik the credit for designing the right offense. I mean, by halftime, he was 11 of 16, 236 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, with a 151 passer rating. It's just that by the time the second half came around, the defense did their part, that we didn't even need CJ Stroud and Bobby Slowik anymore for real. And also, CJ Stroud has already thrown the most touchdown passes in a Texans playoff game in franchise history. He did it all in just the first half. Imagine if that game was closer, if the Texans defense just wasn't having an elite day and then they were actually having like a shootout. Imagine the stats that CJ Stroud would have had in that game. Again, he didn't even really play at all in the fourth quarter. Bobby Slowik, man, I got to give him credit. Again, like I spoke about briefly earlier, the fact that he waited until the playoffs to dig into the deepest corner of his bag that he just never reached into this entire regular season is very interesting. Was that chestnut checkers? Was that strategy? And then also to do what they just did without their number one receiver in Tank Dell, man. And there's multiple things to take from this. First of all, not to take anything away from Tank Dell, honestly not. But Slowik turning him into a wide receiver 1 this season immediately is crazy. And then most importantly, the biggest takeaway from that is that after losing this wide receiver 1 in Tank Dell, the show must go on mentality, and he just basically got everybody else involved and made it look as if Tank Dell isn't even a necessary piece for this offense to succeed. That's incredible. Again, against an elite defense in the Cleveland Browns. I want to keep emphasizing that throughout this video. This was not just some cupcake defense that he went against, some wet tissue paper type of defense. This was a serious defense they were going on, man. They balled out against those guys. Imagine how much crazier the score would have been. Also, first of all, without them sitting CJ Stroud early in the fourth quarter, like I already said, but also without a couple of dropped wide open passes and also a couple of overthrows, including an open touchdown that CJ Stroud overthrew at one point in that game as well. Without those mistakes, these guys cleared probably 60 points in this game, including the 14 that they got from the defense. I don't want to act like that was all offense, but still, man, the level of efficiency was ridiculous. They could have scored way more points if they really wanted to. Also, the only rookies with 200 plus yards and 3 touchdowns in the playoff game entering today were Brock Purdy last year and Dak Prescott in 2016 and Sammy Ball in 1937. CJ Stroud accomplished that in the first half. I want to keep emphasizing that. This team had the number 2 overall pick in the draft a season ago. It's amazing what can change in just 1 year. Again, Houston was 3-13-1 last season, 4-13 the season before that, and 4-12 the year before that. They bring in DeMeco Ryans, Bobby Slowik, CJ Stroud, have that amazing draft and free agency class, and you see the difference that they made. We can do the same thing. I'm telling you right now, the Commanders can do the same thing with or without Bobby Slowik, in my opinion. But you've seen the evidence that Bobby Slowik can be a huge piece of a turnaround like that, going from number 2 overall pick to winning your division and going to the playoffs and winning your wild card game at the very least so far. We'll see what the Texans can accomplish for the rest of this playoffs. But we see with Bobby Slowik involved, the amazing things you can do going from last to first. Well, one of the worst teams in the NFL to one of the best teams in the NFL. I mean, just look at their 2023 draft alone. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that played a role into this. Pretty sure Bobby Slowik was pretty instrumental in this as well. CJ Stroud, Will Anderson traded up for him, Juice Scruggs, Nathaniel Dale, Dylan Horton, Henry To'oTo'o, Jared Patterson, Xavier Hutchinson, and Brandon Hill. And just to let you know, Nathaniel Dale is Tank Dale's real name. Tank Dale is just his nickname that everybody calls him. Also, free agency wise, this wasn't just built through the draft. This was built through free agency as well. Dalton Schultz, you have Singletary. I don't know why the Bills didn't use him more with the game he had today. Perryman, Littleton, Brown, Ward, Sheldon Rankins. They had so many guys contribute immediately to this team through free agency in the draft. We could do the same exact thing, man. Remember when everybody, shouts out to my sports update for bringing this point up as well. Remember when everybody bugged out that the Texans traded their own first round pick to Arizona on draft night instead of the one that they had from Cleveland when they moved up to the number 3 overall pick to get Will Anderson? Well, as it turns out now, Houston's pick will actually end up being later than Cleveland's. So now they look like even bigger geniuses from that alone. And guess, I know a lot of this praise that I just gave them as far as team building doesn't have as much to deal with Bobby Slowik, but you know what? Adam Peters is going to handle that. He'll have that side handled. Bobby Slowik, come in, do what you do. Adam Peters can handle the rest, and we can literally go from number 2 overall pick to playoff contender, Super Bowl contender, just like the Texans did. I trust all of those compliments that I just gave the Texans for their team building. I fully trust Adam Peters to be able to do that as well. And let this also be a big lesson in not scouting the helmet. CJ Stroud is from Ohio State and looks like one of the best quarterbacks already in just his rookie season. So don't give me that Caleb Williams will not be great just simply because he went to USC. I love it when y'all scout helmets as a UGA fan. It helps us for recruiting. Like, keep that up. But we really do need to stop that just in general. If Caleb Williams doesn't become a great NFL quarterback, it will be because of other factors, and most of them will probably be on him if that were to happen, but it just won't simply be because he was a USC quarterback. We got to stop that. I'm so happy CJ Stroud is stopping that for Ohio State. As a UGA fan, I hate it. Nah, keep scouting the helmet. Great quarterbacks don't go to Ohio State. Don't even go over there. Those guys never work out in the NFL. Keep doing that as a UJ fan, but I think it's really dumb. We got to stop doing that for the NFL. We really have to stop doing that. And man, look how stable and how much brighter their future looks than even the Jaguars looked this time last year, because the Texans have the 4th most projected cap space in the league for 2024. CJ Stroud is 22 years old. Nico Collins is 24 and Tank Dell is 24. Their future is extremely bright. Now, granted, they'll more than likely end up losing Bobby Slowik to become a head coach to a team, potentially us, which is why we're doing this video right now. But hey, man, their future is bright, and we could do the same thing. We could have the same draft type of situation, draft our quarterback, get our CJ Stroud, our young quarterback. We have some really good, fairly young receivers. Terry McLaurin's kind of getting up there in age, and Curtis Samuel, got to resign him kind of up there in age, but still have plenty of years to get things going. And we have the #1 most cap space. The Texans have the 4th most. We have the #1 most. I'm telling you, Adam Peters is going to work magic alongside potentially a Bobby Slowik, which is the purpose of this exercise and this video. And just like how Ben Johnson has done a great job of getting Sam Laporta involved, look at what Bobby Slowik was doing with Dalton Schultz, man. Hooping. Even though Dalton Schultz, I believe he was the one that had that really bad drop that could have been a huge first down and led to a touchdown drive. Hey, man, that boy had Dalton Schultz activated today. So just like how Ben Johnson, I trust him to get the tight end position right along with Adam Peters, I trust Bobby Slowik to do the same thing as well, to even maximize the talent of the guys that we already have here, like a Cole Turner, but also to be able to identify and develop the guy that we potentially get in the draft to do the same thing as well. Now, also, let's take a look at some scheme notes as far as Bobby Slowik goes. Like, what's some of the advantages to the scheme? Why is this working? Well, first of all, his ability to move the pocket for CJ Stroud and to buy him time for longer developing routes and isolating defenders in space to create wide open targets is just unfair, man. That's some elite stuff he's doing right there. And the fact that receivers just seem open every play. And I like the fact that Bobby Slowik usually has CJ Stroud throwing against the movement of the play. Like that deep touchdown to Dalton Schultz, that play right there, it was so beautiful because everybody, including CJ Stroud, let me grab the football to show this. Like everybody was moving basically to the right. Everybody, including CJ Stroud, was rotating to the right, moving the pocket. All of the receivers, all of the routes going this way. But then Slowik, at some point during the route, had Dalton Schultz going right with everybody else, eventually go left on like a delayed post route. Typically the post route would go to the right, but he had to go this way. He had to go to the left away from everybody else after he was originally going right like everybody else. And then he ended up hella open because of it for an easy touchdown, man. And also I love how Slowik knew that he could even call this play just simply because of CJ Stroud's arm talent. Not everybody can pull off that throw, running this way, turn around, opposite side of your body, deliver it that far down the field, perfectly accurate as well. Even with how open Dalton Schultz was, Slowik designed and called this play around the talent that he has at his disposal, most notably the quarterback's arm talent in CJ Stroud. And man, that is very underrated. We don't know much about that over here. Taking advantage of the talent that we have, the strengths that we have on our side, arm talent, speed, all that type of stuff. Bobby Slowik is showing that he can fully take advantage of that. And I love how layered everything was too, man, because again, the special arm talent from CJ Stroud to be able to deliver that. The route concept was so layered that defenders didn't know exactly what to prioritize. It was just beautiful, man. It was a master class. Also, shouts out to Josh Norris for this. Look at how every formation is condensed for Bobby Slowik. I think that's very noteworthy as well. Rarely are any receivers on or outside the numbers pre-snap. Allows for all of the grass outside of those numbers to be attacked and fills that space with routes post-snap rather than defenders pre-snap. I feel like that's very important to emphasize. I hope if we hire him as a head coach, he brings that element of his offense to us because I feel like that's very underrated as well. Also, Bobby Slowik has not been perfect. Even with as great as he's been this year, he's had that one really weird weakness. For some reason, he's had this propensity of just doing a run pass every drive. It just seemed like that was just, he was forced to do that. Like gun to head, you need to call run pass every drive. And yet somehow they were still killing defenses at times with that. And then he decided this game against the Cleveland Browns to finally stop doing that. The one knock on the Bobby Slowik offense, he finally was like, all right, let's stop doing it once we get to the playoffs. And now they're just a fully loaded offense, and you saw them in full display against, again, that elite Cleveland Browns defense. I mean, did he just wait until the playoffs to finally put together the almost near perfect offensive plan? Like, was that just a distraction with that run pass all season, all regular season? Like, maybe that was on purpose. Maybe this is just a chess not checker situation. Like, show potential opposing defenses all regular season that you have certain strong tendencies that you always go with, run pass, for example, so that they practice against that. They prepare to counter that all week in practice, and then you go out there and do the opposite. And so the Browns really never stood a chance. It's not even really their fault. I can't even blame their defensive coordinator. Bobby Slowik has shown all regular season run pass. He gets to the playoffs, and the first game, it seems like all season, he throws that out the window. Cleveland Browns are completely unprepared for that. Now, also, let's talk about some connections and why us hiring Bobby Slowik as our head coach is actually very possible. Well, first of all, Adam Peters, as much as we love him and as much power as he's going to have over this organization, how we build it up, starting with the head coach and everything like that, they spent a lot of time together, like 4 or 5 years in San Francisco together, so he really knows them. And I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Peters isn't one of the main ones vouching for us to go get Bobby Slowik, just off of their strong relationship from their time in San Francisco together. Also, his connection to the Burgundy and Gold, even excluding Adam Peters. His first job in the NFL was actually on the famous Washington staff that 2011 to 2013, they had all of these heavy hitters on it, man. I mean, Kyle Shanahan as the offensive coordinator, Matt LaFleur as the quarterbacks coach, Sean McVay tight ends coach, Bobby Slowik as the defensive assistant. Again, he started on the defensive side of the ball. It's amazing that he's this elite of an offensive coordinator, but it kind of makes sense. If you know defense in and out, then you know exactly how to scheme against it. Makes sense. Mike McDaniels was the wide receivers coach on that team, and Chris Forrester was the offensive lines coach. So now you have Kyle Shanahan, head coach of the 49ers, Sean McVay, head coach of the Rams, Matt LaFleur, head coach of the Packers, Mike McDaniels, head coach of the Dolphins, arguably the most explosive offense in the NFL, Bobby Slowik, our guy, offensive coordinator of the Texans, future head coach. Chris Forrester is the 49ers offensive lines coach, and Raheem Morris is the defensive coordinator for the Rams. He was part of that roster as well. They just don't typically show him on graphics. Crazy stuff, man. So again, he was back there. This boy Bobby Slowik was a part of that famous 2011 through 2013 coaching staff that had all of these elite minds, and we didn't accomplish nothing. I think we only won like 2 or 4 games that season. Back then, he was a defensive assistant with his father Bob Slowik on the staff as a defensive backs coach. Years later, when Kyle Shanahan became the coach of the 49ers, Slowik was hired as a defensive quality control coach before switching to the offensive side of the ball and working his way up Shanahan's staffs as other teams hired away his assistants. So every time people just kept taking people from Kyle Shanahan's coaching tree, Bobby Slowik just slowly moved his way up, and then eventually he got taken by the Texans after they hired DeMeco Ryans as their head coach last year. And so now this was his first, again, opportunity as an offensive coordinator in his entire NFL career. This was his first chance to call plays and all of that type of stuff, because of course if you work under Kyle Shanahan, you're not calling plays even if you are the offensive coordinator. So this was his first opportunity to completely run an offense and be an offensive coordinator and all of that, and boy, he took full advantage of that and showed out, exceeded all expectations, even beyond what Kyle Shanahan and Adam Peters probably even had for him going to the Texans. So, hey, man, if you want to finally break that 2013 coaching staff curse, hire Bobby Slowik, man. Let everything come back full circle. That would be beautiful, man. Man, and Bobby Slowik, please come free us from our sadness, dog. Because you see Cameron Curl tweeting, at like 5 p.m.? He says something about, I'm tired of being a spectator. And John Kahn basically retweeted that and posted, guessing Cam also speaks for the fan base, and he sure does, man. I hate once we're in January, we have no chance of watching the Commanders playing meaningful football. I mean, our season felt like it was pretty much over by November. That's terrible, man. We complain all off season, from February all the way through basically September, that we have no football to watch. And then when we get here, our season ends not even in February. Our season ends in November. That's not fair, man. I can't wait for us to fix this, man. I really, really do. Also, really random to throw out there, and I feel like Adam Peters can do similar things. The list of players and results of picks acquired by Texans in Deshaun Watson trade. After the Deshaun Watson trade, these are all of the players and picks that they pretty much ended up with as of today. Will Anderson Jr., wide receiver Tank Dell, guard Kenyon Green, linebacker Christian Harris, running back Dameon Pierce, wide receiver John Mechie III. From Alabama, I still wish him the best because I know he was going through a lot of stuff physically and stuff. I hope he's back to normal, and hopefully he can start the ball out for the Texans as well. Defensive end Thomas Booker, safety Brandon Hill, wide receiver Xavier Hutchinson, 2024 first round pick still loaded in the chamber, and a 2024 third round pick. All shouts out to the Browns. And that's just terrible too, because they just beat the Browns and showed them that you made the wrong trade. You should have had CJ Stroud and all of these great players and free agency options and draft picks and all of this type of stuff. You were on the wrong side of that trade, and it's just beautiful to see how that trade came back to haunt them in this game where the Texans just whooped up on the Cleveland Browns, the exact team that they traded with. Also, Deshaun Watson is being paid $91.3 million to the Cleveland Browns. All 9 of those players that I just listed, including those 2 draft picks that the Texans got in that trade with the Cleveland Browns for Deshaun Watson, all 9 of those players are making only $48 million total right now. Only a little over half the money that Deshaun Watson is making himself. He didn't even play in this game in the playoffs just now. That's pitiful, man. Man, Cleveland Browns, just as soon as y'all get stuff going, y'all are built so well top to bottom. Your quarterback's holding you back once again, and also holding your cap space back as well. Man, with all of this praise that the Texans are receiving tonight, I hope we're getting the same thing this time next year, man. Also, while we're here talking about this playoff game, don't you just hate to see how much JOK is balling right now, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and how we passed on him to say Jamin Davis? And the excuse was, well, Jamin Davis has this high ceiling, he's freakishly athletic, but also he's a military guy. You'll never have to worry about him off the field. But look at him now. Multiple speeding tickets and all of these legal troubles and battles that he's dealing with right now. He's on IR right now, and even if he weren't, I'm not even sure that he's going to be able to play next year if he doesn't even, at the very least, get suspended by the NFL with everything that's going on. And Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is out there having a legendary season. I remember the commentator while I was watching the playoff game saying something to the extent of he has the most tackles for loss out of any linebacker at the very least, but I believe any player in the NFL period since Luke Kuechly had a little bit more than him like a few years ago. Like, that's ridiculous, dog. We could have had him. I'm just still sick about that. Also, shouts out to John Com, because I completely agree with this. Great point to bring up right now. There are multiple top candidates for the Washington job, but until they actually start the full process, it will be hard to say what to expect. Enter process open-minded. No in-person's interviewed yet. Huge key. Top candidates will want this job. How they mesh and leadership skills will be very key in this process, but I want to emphasize that again. This is a job that the candidates will want. We are not like the Panthers where people will turn us down. Just like I told y'all weeks ago, I gave y'all the heads up. We will be a big time landing spot for GM candidates and head coaching candidates. And then we ended up even exceeding my expectations, my super optimistic glass half full expectations. We got to the point where Adam Peters and Ian Cunningham, arguably the 2 top candidates, were both fighting for the one spot we had available. Instead of us fighting over them with other NFL teams, the candidates were fighting over who would get the job with us. And I think, and I definitely am optimistically guessing that there will be the same situation with head coaching candidates. I can see Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowik, and Mike McDonald doing everything in their power to compete against each other for the chance to be our head coach rather than the other way around. I'm super excited about the future of this team. I think we're going to hit it on the head. And speaking of Ben Johnson, remember, Ben Johnson's offense and Raheem Morris's defense will play tomorrow night, as in January 14th at night. So make sure you pull up to watch that game as well. We just saw what Bobby Slowik did. Now let's see what Raheem Morris and Ben Johnson do going head to head. That's going to be a little bit more interesting, because those are 2 candidates right there going against each other. And don't forget, Anthony Glenn as well, the Lions defensive coordinator. We get to watch him. So from that one game alone, we're looking at 3 head coaching candidates for the Commanders versus what we saw tonight, only 1 head coaching candidate in Bobby Slowik. But you could argue he should be the head coaching candidate, the head coach of the Washington Commanders, for the reasons I've already explained. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. I'm telling y'all, the Commanders starting to make some moves that's starting to have people nervous, man. They nervous out here, man. They looking nervous, but we got the the best GM available. We about to get one of the best head coaches available, probably the best head coaches available. I'm telling y'all, if there was a time to put your heart on the line for the burgundy and gold, this is the time. And I'm gonna have y'all updated on everything burgundy and gold. You see I'm coming out with 2-3 videos a day, live streams. This is your one-stop shop for everything Commanders. Even if it's something as small as a rumor, even if it's not a trustworthy source saying something about the Commanders, we'll still talk about it. We will acknowledge that it is in fact a rumor, so we don't know whether to believe it or not, but we're still going to completely dissect it and analyze it and look at everything as to why we want this thing to happen and why we also don't want this thing to happen. The weaknesses and strengths, the positives and negatives to everything. One-stop shop. And again, for channel members, y'all will be getting exclusive film sessions on a lot of these draft prospects that we're potentially looking for the Commanders to draft as well. So stay tuned for that. And without further ado, man, I'm going to catch y'all later. I'm out.